Okay, we just, Dasen, you're still with us. We just played that bite, one of the bites of that incident when there was an argument inside the venue around this additional member and the resignation of another member of the ANC from the executive there, the council executive, and then wanting them to be replaced by an ABC guy. And of course, we know that was resolved. Just wanted to give a bit of an insight to what transpired there. Then, of course, there was the matter of the head count, and both issues seem to have been handled, and now voting is beginning. So is the voting currently, Dasen, for chief whip? Is it for the mayor, the deputy mayor? What are they voting for currently, or is they voting for all these outstanding roles?
Yeah, they'll primarily be voting for the mayor now. And Pradan, you'll remember that initially, before we got to this venue, the inaugural meeting was first held in a tent where they had these issues about electricity, and then you know that there were disruptions there by members that were dressed in ANC colors. And I'll say that because, you know, it's difficult to say exactly who is an ANC member or not, but certainly people that were wearing ANC colors that had stormed that venue. And one of the questions that was then raised a short while ago when this meeting started was why that happened in the first place. And the person that did that, if I may just interrupt here, was Makosi Koza from Action SA. We were listening to you earlier, and you were raising concerns about the tent and why we started there. What are you planning to do to get those answers that you wanted?
Well, the Speaker is legally obliged to be answerable to us as councillors. I'm now a sworn-in councillor, and I'm expecting answers from the Speaker. So let's wait for the next meeting of council and see if he responds or not.
It's already been quite an eventful meeting, even though we've only just been here for about an hour or two. What have been your impressions of it so far?
To be honest with you, I'm very tense right now. On Monday, the mood was different. People were in favor. We managed to get all the different opposition parties to be in favor of the DA. But unfortunately, the DA still has a lot to do when it comes to attitude and understanding, you know, especially the Black African psychology. Because those people, if you are displaying some, even if it's perceived, white supremacy tendencies, they tend to backtrack. As a result, we've lost Mavundla. I'm sad because Mavundla was with us, and now he's no longer with us. He's with the ANC. So, I don't know how many people we've lost in our block, where those that wanted to answer the ANC.
So, what does that basically mean? I mean, I would imagine, Dr. Kosa, that the conversations that have been happening over the past 2 days have been quite intense. So, what you saw here today, is that not a continuation of those conversations that were had behind closed doors?
Well, a bit. The sound has shifted a bit. You can tell. First of all, Mavundla was in our block, for example. Now he's the deputy mayor proposed by the ANC. And also, we're hoping that going forward, the DA is going to start addressing, issues of the majority of South Africans and not be there to protect white privilege only. Because if that's what they are standing for, they stand to lose. And we are going to be watching them very closely if they are doing the work right. Because the ANC, there is no question about the ANC. The ANC has to go. We've given the ANC the chance. Let's try something else.
I just want to ask you this last question. Being one of the parties that has a certain percentage, a small percentage of seats here and votes in the council, what about this allegation that the smaller parties were then offered incentives or money to then vote with the ANC? Do you know anything about that?
I'm not sure about which political parties were offered money, but I know about political parties that were offered positions in council. I mean, for example, Mavundla only has 2 seats. We have 4 seats and was offered the position of deputy mayor. So we know that it's self-evident, but the others I have no clue.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Kosa, and all the best. You heard it there, Braden. That was one of the allegations that had surfaced earlier about the apparent exchange. And I say apparent because there is no verification of these allegations, but that's what the opposition councillors, particularly the DA, were alleging earlier today, that there could have been an exchange, and that's why these talks, these arrangements, these incentives were exchanged in the lead-up to where we are now, and that's ultimately with the voting and what we saw earlier with the changes to the EXCO from the ANC. But you know how it goes here in this political sphere, Braden. There's no permanent arrangement, and even talks that political parties may have had yesterday could be outdated today. It ultimately comes down to what happens there when these councillors go up to that ballot box and cast their votes.
Yeah, and listening to Makosi Khoza of HNSA, Dasen, you can hear the tension. She said she's feeling tense because things have shifted since last time. The ANC has now grabbed Mavundla to their side by offering him apparently the deputy mayoral position, and the voting for that. But he's only got 2 seats in the council. HNSA has got 4, but they don't want to work with the ANC. So that block of Action SA plus the other smaller parties that were supporting the DA has been shaken quite a bit.
It has, because ultimately that's what they were relying on in the first place. It was almost, in a sense, the smaller parties, the opposition parties, all banding together to overturn the ANC, if you could put it that way, and they wanted to ensure that the ANC didn't govern under any circumstances at all. But the issue here is that you would have also picked up there in her comments about the DA and these allegations of white supremacy, you would hear that there is also a sense of disagreement amongst themselves as well, which then raises the question of exactly how stable such a government would be ultimately if and when they do get an arrangement like that going. Because it seems like while they have all banded together to get rid of what they seem to call like a common enemy in this case, how's it going to work beyond that? Because after that, what is it that's going to unite them if they already have these differences at those levels of what the values of the parties stand for and what each of them can bring to the table?
Yeah, it looks like it's less about values and principles, what they stand for, but it's about trying to get the ANC out of the mayoral leadership position and other such positions of the council, because there's a lot of wheeling and dealing. Because if, let's use him as an example, now that we know he's now with the ANC's bloc, yesterday he was with the DA bloc, according to Kosi Makosa there of Action SA. Now Mr. Mavundla today wakes up, he's now in the ANC bloc. So things are shifting around about positions rather than about issues of values and principles.
No, definitely, and that's exactly what's happening here, because as you would have heard there, and that's not the only place that we're hearing that, is that the promise of quite a senior position, I mean something like deputy mayor here, would mean a lot and would obviously sway those negotiations. I'm actually, here on my left is Viswan Reddy of ADEC. Mr. Reddy, we were talking to some of the parties around here, and I heard earlier that you were backing the ANC in a sense in their proposal to have the EXCO list amended. Why was that? I mean, if you look at most of the opposition parties on that side, they were against that. What was your thinking?
No, that's looking at it very simplistically. I'm looking at the law and what the law says. The law is very clear. It's in terms of Section 45 of the Municipal Structures Act. It says that the composition of the EXCO is something that a party can amend. Now, when you look at what the ANC said, and let's put the politics aside, the ANC said that one of its members had resigned, which effectively means that instead of having 10 members of the executive, you have 9. So the party, in terms of the law, is allowed to make that amendment and put another person in so that they have 10. That is the issue.
Would you have supported the DA, for example, if they had had the same problem?
Correct. I would have absolutely done that. I support the law and the letter of the law. I understand the law. So that's what I will support.
Tell me if...
You see this arrogant white man here. You see this arrogant guy here. He's been a councillor for a long time. Arrogant as ever. This is the attitude that they have. They speak down to people of color. This is the attitude.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This is how he speaks. Look at that.
Sorry, I didn't see that exchange. What just
he goes there and he mumbles something under his breath. Right? He can't come and challenge me. He must come and challenge me directly. I'll deal with him. I'll deal with him thoroughly.
So, Mr. Reddy, I just want to.
I don't need to be spoken down to by a white person.
I just want to bring the conversation back to what we're talking about now, about the conversations between the minority parties in this sense, and parties like the ANC.
The minority parties in this council controls the balance of power. Now, Nicole Graham there, she made a statement that the executive committee must reflect the will of the council. Do you know that there are 27 councillors here from minority parties, and they're not on the executive committee? So if you're using her argument, then actually they should give up one of the EXCO seats. The ANC should give up one of the EXCO seats, because in terms of the numbers, 27 entitles the minority parties to 2 seats on the executive committee.
Have you been approached by the ANC?
No, I'm not talking to the ANC. ANC is not my friend. They're not my friend. But who's my friend is justice and law. If tomorrow the DA is in the same situation and the law is not in their favor, I will support the law. Or the law is in their favor, I will support the law. That doesn't mean I'm supporting the DA. I support the letter of the law. That's the most important thing.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Reddy. Just trying to get a sense here, Braden, of what the smaller parties at the eThekwini Municipality are saying. That's the kind of word that we are getting, because those were the conversations.
Okay.
These are the conversations that will be integral to this process, and that is the conversations that.
Dasen, just hold on, don't go anywhere. But what I want to do to our viewers, because this matter has come up again, it happened a little bit earlier when there was the whole issue of the adding another member. The ANC raised the issue of adding another member on the EXCO, on the executive. We have a bite to play about what the IFP had said at the time, threatening to take the Speaker, Thabani Nyawose, to court after, of course, Nyawose had ruled that the ANC may submit that additional name. The ANC, as we know, has added Philani Mavundla from that ABC party, and of course he's now contesting for the deputy mayoral position. But the IFP was not happy. Mdunkosi had this to say a little bit earlier. Let's take a listen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, I want to say to you, with your legal advice, that we will meet you in court. For one reason, on Monday, you can say that because the money that you have is paying bills for you. On Monday, we agreed on the item, and there was no objection on the item. Here you are today, because you are wearing an ANC cap, not a council cap. You want to put us in the corner to agree into what you are doing. I want to register that you are going to meet you in court with your legal advice.
Okay, that was an exchange a little bit earlier there, Dasen, that we play of Mdunkosi of the IFP threatening legal action against the Speaker for allowing the ANC to change. But the man you were speaking there a little bit earlier from ADEC was saying the law allows the ANC to add, to replace rather, a member on the executive there who had resigned.
That's right, Braden. In fact, it's so strange that you were playing that bite from Mr. Mdunkosi just now, because he just crossed my path right now, and I can't let the opportunity go. Mr. Nkosi, how are you?
I'm okay, and you?
Okay, we were just listening to your exchange with the Speaker earlier and your threat of legal action. Now, I want to ask you this, because you would have heard there from their legal advisor. They say that the rules allow for that. So on what grounds would you challenge the addition of that member of the EXCO by the ANC?
Well, firstly, on Monday, all the names were agreed upon. The process is flawed because we need to have an item in an agenda and also to rescind the resolution. There was no rescindment of the resolution. Hence, I'm saying what the Speaker and the legal advisor is doing is totally wrong. They're supposed to say they table an item and we must agree on the item that we are now rescinding, because there is a resolution of the council. Now, they are even refusing to give me the records, because I'm saying we are recording all the proceedings. So give us the record of what transpired on that day. So that's why I'm saying I don't trust what the legal advisor is saying, because to me he's advising the council based on the on his feelings.
But you also made a very serious allegation on that front, and I say serious because you accused the Speaker of not being able to separate between his ANC cap and his council cap.
Yeah, we expected the Speaker to be the Speaker of the Council, not the ANC Speaker. So we want him to rule according. We understand he's new in this position, but he must ensure that we are all happy as political parties here. Because as I'm here, I'm a councillor that needs to service everyone in eThekwini. But the way he treats us, I'm doubting that we are going to work harmoniously with him.
Okay, and so, am I going to be congratulating you as Deputy Mayor later?
Well, I'm not too sure. That will depend to the voters. But what is important, we are doing the will of the people. Sure. It's not about the personal gain.
Thank you, Mr. Nkosi. Thank you for humouring me there, brother. And I was just having a light moment there with Mr. Mdu Nkosi there of the IFP. As I, had in the conversation there, you would have heard that they have serious concerns. And the beginning of the conversation, you would have heard he's got serious concerns about the Speaker and how this process was handled, and that is the basis of the legal action that they are threatening. That's why I was saying to you earlier that beyond what we see here today and beyond the decisions that are made at Council today, it seems like there is going to be a continuation, and that's possibly some of these issues being taken to court. Yeah,
but there seems to be an understanding that legally the Municipal Structures Law Act allows this, but they'll have to sort it out. Let's wait and see what's going to happen. Now, Dasen, it's about 10 to 5. You and I have been talking for quite some time. In case some viewer has just joined us here on eNCA, DSTV Channel 43, just very briefly, just tell us what's happening now. It looks like, I don't know how many people still have to vote, if you've got an idea, and I don't know how many have been voting so far, but things are moving smoothly, and the voting currently, from what you know, is apparently for the position of mayor. The ANC's candidate is Mxolisi Kaunda, the DA's candidate is Nicole Graham, and that bloc that was supporting the DA has now been shaken because Mr. Mavundla has shifted in the last 24 hours. He's changed his position and joined the ANC under the ticket of a possible deputy mayor position.
That's right. So the line that you're looking at now is one of those lines that's leading to that voting booth. So there were 219 councillors that were eligible to vote here. It seems to be moving quite smoothly. The majority of those councillors have gone, cast their votes, and are returning to their seats. It's quite a number of them. They split up according to their party. The minority parties are just beyond the shot that you're looking at now. That's where they are situated. The council meeting did get off to a bit of a rocky start with delays. Remember, this should have been quite an expeditious process. It should have just been the election of the mayor and the deputy mayor. It should have been a continuation of that process after it was interrupted on Monday. But that wasn't to be the case, because right at the beginning, Braden, was where the political parties all raised points of order around what happened at the meeting on Monday. Now, their issue there was around how that was allowed to happen, because let me just give you an example of where I am now at the ICC and how difficult it is to get in here. Even as the media, we were limited in terms of number. There were only a certain number of us that were allowed to get accreditations. It was first come, first serve. Even outside this venue, there were police and armoured vehicles. The road was cordoned off. So there are questions raised amongst the councillors of how then on Monday was that group able to get past all of these security measures and into that tent, and then there was that suspicious power outage that happened as well. So the councillors were not just accepting the apology that Thabani Nyawose, the Speaker, offered at the opening of the session. They wanted more. They wanted to know how fast that investigation would unfold, when that report would be here, and what assurances they would have that would not happen again.
And I guess,
points of order.
I guess, Dasen, just on the venue, I guess another question on on the opposition party's mind today would have been, why was this venue that is being used today not the original venue on Monday? Why was a marquee chosen? Because, you know, by all standards, it might be difficult to have security in the marquee. But you were saying there were several other points of order raised, and then, of course, we had the issue of a demand of a head count. And just remind our viewers how that one played itself out.
That's right. So those were the initial delays around the points of order around that security breach. And again, the IFP raising the point that although the Speaker had said a group of people had marched in, the IFP's and Mdu Nkosi correcting the Speaker there and saying, but it wasn't just a group of people. He claimed those were ANC members that had come in there. So that took quite some time. And then as I mentioned, the other delay, particularly from the EFF and the IFP member going as far as walking up to the stage and grabbing a mic from the table that you see there at the front to make his point. There was another very frustrating problem that took place at this venue today, and that was the issue of mics. So many of the councillors that were trying to raise their points of order struggled to do so because the mics at their tables were not working. So that led to lots of frustration.
Now let's pause there. Dasen, let's pause there and just give our viewers a sense, because we were not live inside the venue at the time when there was a demand for a head count that was made by the IFP and the EFF. Let's just take a listen to the bite that we have prepared for that now.
Candidates, please don't interfere with the process. I've addressed numbers are on screen.
Okay, that's just a bite there we brought for you, bring our viewers into the picture, Dasen, to what happened earlier when both the EFF and the IFP demanded that there should be a head count of who is inside the ICC today before voting actually started. That moment has come and gone. Voting has been underway now. Currently, we can see the live visuals from inside. The IEC, of course, is managing this process to ensure its impartiality and fairness and freeness, so to speak. And at this stage, what are you observing? Is there anything interesting? You've spoken to a number of political parties and commentators. Makosi calls us saying she's tense now because Mr. Mavundla, who was of the ABC, was part of the bloc that Action SA is associated with in terms of supporting the DA against the ANC, has now shifted and moved to the ANC bloc.
That's right. Fortunately, it's a lot calmer now, Praten. I mean, the mood has settled quite a bit. I think people are focused on the task at hand, and that is the voting. There are lots of small conversations happening around the room between the political parties, amongst themselves as well. But I think this was the point that all of them were trying to get to. They wanted to ensure that, in their opinion, that it was being done in a free and fair way. And that's why we had all of that drama that we saw, and particularly in that video that you played as well, where the IFP and the EFF had confronted the IEC officials and they wanted that head count, eventually resolving or listening to what the Speaker had to say, where he had indicated that there was a count that was being done, and it had been done by, row by row, and as a result of that, the process was then allowed to continue. That's where we are now. Let me just show you what the line is looking like currently on the left side of me. You'll see a lot of the EFF members have now joined the queue, and they're also going there to cast their vote. As I mentioned, there were only 2 nominations, and that was the nomination of Mxolisi Kaunda and Nicole Graham from the DA. Kaunda potentially up for a second term.
And in terms of that head count, how many councillors are casting their votes? You said 219. Is that the official number?
So 219, yeah. So 219 councillors here, the majority of those from the ANC rather, followed by the DA. So those are the councillors that will be casting their votes today. You'll also know that the EXCO at eThekwini has 10 members, and that was the other point of contention, and that was where that additional member came from another party. Interesting there, Dan, was that although the DA had raised a point saying that it was unheard of to have one political party, which has a large number, nominate someone from a smaller political party into the EXCO, I mean the highest body in the municipality, so to speak. And the legal advisor and the speaker there ruling and clarifying that it was actually allowed and that can happen. So if the ANC has decided that it wants a political party which has just one seat here to feature on the EXCO, that can happen. And that was the ultimate ruling and the legal advice that was given here by the legal advisor for the municipality.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of horse trading that's happening there, Dasen, as we've had in the case, the example that we're using, because we all know about him now, Philani Mavundla now having moved from the bloc that was going to be originally supporting the DA to the ANC one, with the promise, of course, of being fielded as a nominated candidate for the deputy mayor. So a number of things have happened, lots of moving parts. I mean, when speaking to an analyst a little bit earlier here on eNCA, he was sort of predicting that if those smaller parties that have said originally they'll stay with the DA is likely to take the mayoral position. But just listening to Makosi Khoza talking to you there a little bit earlier, she said she was tense. Things are no longer what they seemed to be yesterday.
Not at all, and you can see even the mood is slightly different. It's also unusual to see Makosi Khoza looking like that now. You'd remember what she was like during the campaigning phase leading up to this election, and I think I just from that conversation that I had, I see that there was a lot of concern in both her voice and her eyes, particularly because of that change that you mentioned and that shift, because clearly it was something that they had found out about here, something that they had not necessarily anticipated, because it would seem that there were many conversations happening in parallel between parties, not just those big ones or those mainstream ones that were going to decide on which side these parties voted.